chess friends, hope you're doing great. Today, I've got something awesome for you. I'm going to share 10 sneaky chess traps from various openings to give you an edge in your games. These tricks could really boost your rating. If you want to be the best chess player, then you must know these chess traps. So, let's dive right in and check them out. White kicks off with the e4, you go with the natural developing moves, knight f6, and black goes for the Ruy Lopez. Here I would like to recommend you to play knight f6, after white plays castle. Notice that the e4 pawn gets unprotected. There is another mind-blowing trap starts with a6, which I will discuss later. First, we will play the sneaky move knight g4, not to capture the e4 pawn. Black gets amazed to think, what's the point to bring out the knight on g4? You can't checkmate me with your nonsense knight, so he tries to kick out the knight with h3. Here we shock him by moving our pawn to h5. Look, this g4 knight is poisoned. Instead of developing the other knight, if white tries to capture the g4 knight, he will be completely dead lost. Now you have to deal with this unprotected knight. If the knight moves back, you play thunderbolt move going queen to h4, threatening checkmate in 1. Black tries to escape the king with f3, but it's too late. You shut down the gate with g3, and now checkmate him with the queen and get 10 extra elo points. If you love the first trap, which is called fishing pole trap, then consider to like, and thanks me later, and let's move into our next trap. This trap is similar to the previous one. We played knight f6 in the previous game, then white plays castle, but this time we will go with another path, chase the bishop with h6, white often capture the knight on f6. You recapture, and many players know that capturing on e5 will cause queen e7, which will hit both of the pieces, so after castle bishop g4, if white once again attempts to kick out the bishop with h3, then you can play the marvelous move h5. This is a similar trap as the previous game. If white becomes greedy and captures on g4, then the rook gets the open file. All you need to do is to bring out your queen on h4, white captures the pawn, hoping to capture the g4 pawn. But here comes the strike with queen h4, h3 g3, all usual stuffs, and white gets checkmated on h8, and before moving to the third trap, let me share a quote with you. Every step on your journey has been divinely chosen and is necessary, just keep doing your best. Alright, let's move into our third trap. This time white plays the d4 setup, you respond with d5, queen's gambit from white, and instead of playing the standard developing moves, you play the action-thrilling move with e5. If black accepts the gambit, then just push away your pawn, which is protecting the square from developing the knight, and on the other hand, instead of playing the best move knight f3, try to pressuring the pawn. If white ever dares to play e3, which is just a big mistake after black plays bishop before check, white is unable to block the check with the knight, so he have to defend it with the bishop, hitting the bishop. Now you shock your opponent by capturing on e3, sacrificing your bishop right away. Of course your opponent will think of capturing the bishop. If they do so, then take on f2. Your opponent thinks that if I capture the pawn, then I will lose my queen, so let me play king e2 to keep connecting the king with my queen with a divine bondage. It's not bishop g4 check because the knight can block it simply. We will first eliminate the knight with a tempo. After white captures the knight on g1, play bishop g4 like the bishop is a pirate of Jack Sparrow movie, winning the queen right away, which will cause victory in your games. Let's move on to our fourth trap. It starts after d4, but we will not gonna play d5, we will gonna play knight f6. White plays knight d2, getting ready for the e4 pawn pushing. Play the sneaky move e5, capture. Then you strike him with knight g4, hitting the pawn. If he dares to protect the pawn with the knight, you simply play bishop e7, a waiting move to commit white to push his h-pawn, trying to getting out of the knight, because the knight is so annoyed for the king side, but you shock him by moving your knight to e3, that's the kind of heroic attempt to trap the queen. So now if white captures the knight, you follow up with the bishop h4, then queen takes h4 check, which will cause checkmate in 1 move. That is a mind-blowing and brilliant trap. If you ever checkmate your opponent like this, then let me tell in the comments. Going back to the position, if white dares to kick out the knight with h3 immediately, you still have the choice to play knight e3, and after white captures the knight, you follow up the queen h4 and queen g3, which is just dead lost for white, and let me tell you, you are quote in sudden. When you are a good person you don't lose people, people lose you. It's our fifth trap. White kicks off with d4 and after knight f6, we saw knight d2 previously to centralize e and d pawns, but this time white plays c4, which is common response as white. You again strike him with e5, pawn captured, and play knight g4 to re-target the pawn. Bishop came out to f4, and knight and bishop will gonna protect the pawn, but don't worry, we have another knight to join in the battlefield, knight f3, doing best for the pawn to brightens the future of the pawn. And here comes the aggressive move bishop b4, the bishop can't move back as the knight can recapture the pawn, so what is the best response as black? Knight d2 is okay, but here comes another warrior, the queen, constantly attacking to the pawn. White tries to counter black with h3, but we will ignore the bishop and capture the pawn. Hey white, wanna take my bishop? Come and take. Best move is to capture the knight, but if he is lustful and captured the bishop, then you can slap him by playing the devastating move knight to d3, which will result into checkmate. Haha, who can think of getting checkmate like this? No one. Let's move into our next trap. White starts with e4, e5, all of the moves are standard. We swims into the Italian opening, developing the strategy to attack on the f2 pawn with knight and bishop. Here you can play the impossible looking move knight d4, white thinks that this move might be misclicked and therefore let me capture the e5 pawn, attacking on f2, well that's a nice thing to do, but first face queen g5, hitting the knight and the pawn at the same time. White often captures the pawn with bishop, but there is a chance of losing the knight from the board, therefore a natural response from white is to capture the pawn with knight, but this natural looking move is a complete garbage as we can capture the g2 pawn. Hitting the rook, you can take my rook but I will take yours first. If the rook ever tried to move, we will capture the pawn, delivering a check. No matter what he will play, knight f3 will simply cause check and mate. What a beautiful and nasty checkmate. So let's move into our seventh chess trap. This time, we will play as white pieces, because not every time you will get the black pieces. e4 e5 and black plays the Philidor defense. Bishop c4, bishop to g4, pinning the knight. Knight came out to f3 and black played g6, hoping to Fianchetto the bishop, develop the knight and play castle, but here comes the bold move knight takes e5, sacrificing the queen the right away, and if you don't capture my queen then I will capture yours, so after capture here. Knight d5 simply caused checkmate under 10 moves. You may guys familiar with this trap? If you don't then let me know in the comments. I love to read your comments, so let's move into our next chess trap. Now we will choose the black pieces again. d4 d5, queen's gambit, knight f6 and d6 are the common responses as black. After d6 knight c3 knight f6 and bishop b5, pinning the knight, you play the tricky move knight to d7. This move is very tricky, at the first glance. It seems that black is just trying to protect his other knight, and also, after the exchanges, it promises to capture the d5 pawn, as the queen is no longer to protect the pawn. If knight takes pawn really happens, then you can shock your opponent by taking away your knight, offering your queen. White may become happy by capturing the queen, but here comes the heavyweight move by elephant to b4 check. White have to block the check with his queen, and after all the exchanges, black ends up with 3 pieces while white has only 2 minor pieces. That's incredible to see a winning position where you sacrifice your queen and puzzled your opponent like you are the Magnus Carlsen. This is our 9th trap. After e4 e5, knight f3 knight f6 bishop to b5, this is called Ruy Lopez opening. The game goes on with usual stuffs, but black plays knight e7 in sudden. Black could follow up with these standard lines. But we are swimming into the chess opening traps, after black plays the tricky knight e7 move, which computers also demonstrates as an inaccuracy move, but believe me, this is not an inaccuracy. I am Stockfish, better than Chess.com 0 ELO rated computer. White accepts the free pawn because he loves to visit that places where free meals are distributed. Here comes c6, targeting at the bishop. If you ever tried to move back your bishop, you will fall in our trap after I play queen h5 check, hitting this and this, 3 stupids at the same time, so moving the bishop in any square is abnormal. So white thinks a little bit and finds a way to re-challenge black's trick with knight c4, saving the knight, and preparing for the knight d6 check. It's a tempo on the king, so after black plays any move he can risk his bishop. Good idea, but remember, you can defeat your opponent, you can defeat Magnus Carlsen, you can defeat an alien or dinosaur, but you can never and ever defeat me. Knight g6, and now what? You have to deal with your bishop. The bishop has only one square, but b5 will target both of the idiots at the same time. You will be devastated. Ha ha ha, that is a mind-blowing and amazing chess trap, and let's move into our final and 10th chess trap. White starts off with e4, e5, we are facing the Ruy Lopez opening once again. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to my Chess Lessons channel, then you can visit to my that channel where I showcase historical and epic chess games, link in the description. h6, and after the bishop moves back to h4, we play d6, white responds with e4, striking in the center immediately. First chase away the bishop with b5, after the bishop moves capture the pawn. Now knight takes e4 is a big blunder. First white should save his king and later he should capture the pawn, but if he dares to attempt at the first place, exchange the knights. Play c5, tempo on the queen, and no matter how white responds the position, you can win material. Queen d5 may have a tempo on the rook, but you can get an extra tempo by the bishop and protecting the rook at the same time. Queen check, bishop blocks, queen d5 and c4 finally. Now the bishop gets hospitalized, he need to go to the hospital, and during that time, you can win the game very easily. These are 10 chess traps that you should know. If you want more chess traps like this, then you can request me in the comments. Hope you enjoyed the content, like and subscribe to get more episodes. Wish you all the best, bye bye, see ya.